before I realized God was closer than either and beyond them both. The notions and the experiences of God as being personally within or impersonally without are purely relative experiences pertaining to the self and its particular type of consciousness. God, however, is beyond the relativity of our minds and experiences. Indeed, he is so close he can never be localized. But to realize this closeness, to see it, is to discover that the very definition of God is everywhere. Thus God is everywhere and all that truly exists, because wherever we look, there is nothing else to see. In truth, then, God is neither personal nor impersonal, neither within nor without, but everywhere in general and nowhere in particular. Simply put, God is all that truly exists, all, of course, but the self. Part of this transition from having any type of self to having no self was a change in her vision or seeing. By now, with the imposition of the 3D glasses was what she calls the way by which she was able to see oneness everywhere. It became impossible for the mind to perceive or retain any individuality when all visual objects either faded from the mind, gave way to something else, or were seen through. I don't know which is the best description to use. I might also add, I do not understand the mechanism of this change in perception, yet I regard this change as one of the most significant events in the entire journey. It not only remained as a permanent, irreversible fixture of perception, but it seemed to be the necessary vehicle by which I eventually came to the final seeing. And part of the transition, and also regarding seeing, was this experience for her of it being slightly above and in front of her forehead. Besides the body, all that was left was just this seeing, and yet even this did not really belong to me, for it was not localized anywhere in my mental or physical makeup, but instead seemed to be on top or a little above my head, toward the front and over the forehead. Although I continued to refer to this seeing as my wonderful glasses because of the extra-dimensional aspect, I was sure this seeing was actually outside the ordinary mind and physical body as well. She then decides to go camping up in the mountains for a number of months before the snow comes, and she is told to leave. We already heard that quote, for those of you who are paying attention. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, my German friend with the username that I don't remember, neither your real name. You two have something in common. Actually, no, you don't, because I just remembered that, Jeff, you don't watch these videos, so you don't have in common with the other guy that watches these videos, or the other guy that actually does watch these videos, that you may be wondering why I'm wearing this cowboy hat. It's because I looked into the mirror for the first time in a couple of days, and maybe it was just the lighting, but I thought I was getting sunburned, so that's why I'm wearing the cowboy hat. That, of course, does not explain why I'm wearing it indoors. At the threshold of disintegration, something happened. With nothing more to guide it than itself, the body turned away, made an about face that once more confronted it with the forest and the wood to be gathered. So I went on my way, but did not get far before I had to sit down. The body was so weak and shaken, I thought it might fall apart, disintegrate. So she's in the woods, and this shroud of dread is getting closer and closer to her. It's not really, yes, she does see it, but it's more of like an intuition. And it's scary to her, and she learns to trust the wisdom of the body. This experience occurred a number of times while I was in the mountains, and each time I could not get over the mechanism of turning away. Though I was being pulled in the direction of this intensity of myself, I could not have pulled away or turned away. Yet of its own accord the body turned, and always at the last moment. That the body had a power and wisdom of its own struck me as a great mystery, a miracle in experience. I never knew how to evaluate this experience, but each time it occurred I thought the end had come and that the light would go out forever. This would have meant a total blackout such as I had experienced before, a blackout in which there is absolutely nothing, an annihilation more complete than just loss of self, and what this meant, I had no idea. I felt the need of great strength to enter the intensity without the light going out. But what kind of strength is this, and how could it be acquired? Perhaps it was the strength needed to bear the vision, to enter into God. But I did not know for sure, nor could I imagine how one could see the face of God and live. To come upon such a requirement could make a man despair and turn away. Nevertheless, I felt sure that whatever had brought me this far would give me the strength to go all the way. In my journal, I called this experience a crack in the door. And as I've mentioned a couple times, this is not all a bed of roses. Part of this is the descent into hell, the void of voids. Okay, here it is. Sorry. I had it written in my notes, the wrong page. Without any recourse to solace. Realizing I could no longer project a single defense, I waited for some reaction, especially an inner movement of fear. Somehow I knew that with the birth of fear, self would spring alive with all its weaponry, for it was now obvious that fear, the mother of all inventions, was the core around which the self was built, and upon which its life so depended. That self and fear were here, all but indistinguishable. But when no reaction came, when there was no movement of fear, I concluded that self had been frozen and entombed within me in full consciousness of its state of immobility, death, and total helplessness. Unwittingly, I had been lured and entrapped in this monstrous state of no self, an irreversible state because once gone, the self can never return. Thus, in these moments, surrounded by a terror I could not feel and from which I could not escape, I seemed doomed to remain in the unlivable condition of having to stare out at a horrible nothingness without a single weapon of defense. It kind of follows naturally if you think about it. Initially, no self must be scary because there are no weapons of defense, because there is nothing to defend and there is nothing defending, producing those weapons. So she gets in her car. I think this was probably Andrew Molera State Park on the coast of California, because it's just down the monastery where she was just talking about. I myself have camped there once or twice. Beautiful the way the ocean makes the driftwood there. So what does B do? She orders a beer! She goes into town, she drives into town, she's so afraid at this vision of the void of voids. She decides she needs to spend the rest of the day amongst your own kinfolk in a nearby university town.